Right, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, hello, hello. If you're in a safe space and you can join us with your cameras on, please join with your cameras on. It's so great to see people showing up. So let's make sure we can see people showing up. All right, all right. I was looking for some music to play coming in. I like to start with some music, but I didn't have any. And I was like, let's just jump in instead of just wait. I was going to be like 2 minutes late looking for some music. But I'm glad to see some familiar faces. Always good. Look at Lauren. Hold on. Without the press. Hey, Lauren. Yo, I don't. Lauren was on our first Let's Talk About. I don't even know what it was. I don't know what we talked about, but Lauren was there at the beginning, like from day one. It is so great to see you. I'm not gonna look. All right, I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna leave somebody out, notch out people out. But it's just good to see everybody. We haven't done this in a little bit. We've been so busy, not an excuse, but also just part of we want to get out in front of. We just want to get out in front. But I'm glad that we always connect with the community into what it is that we're doing. So if you could do me a favor, though, I'm going to rename myself. I just want to kind of connect the dots. If you can just put your first name and where you're checking in from. So wherever you are geographically, just change and go to rename with the three dots and put your first name and where you are checking in from. Awesome. The DMV. Yes, indeed. All right. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So you guys know this is a conversation. So we're going to be doing a lot of back and forth. So feel free to come off of mute at any time. Feel free to drop in the chat. Please use the chat feature. A lot of you guys have expertise and connections, resources. And as we're talking about stuff, you might think about an article you read or a TikTok you saw or whatever it is. If you can drop stuff in the chat, that would be awesome because we're going to capture all of this stuff on a Padlet board and send it back out to you after we're done. So we'll make sure everything that's being shared, we'll make sure we give it to you. I'm going to give you the Padlet board. So if you want to drop right on the Padlet board, you can and save me a step. But there's our Padlet board for today. We're just going to add resources, whatever you think about, whatever's coming up, please feel free to drop it on in there, right on that Padlet board.
Yeah, and Kyle, real quick, first of all, good to see some original people doing this for 3.5 years. I wish we're gonna have to just do another call, like a reunion call. As you're changing your name on the screen, also if, in the chat, like I love how people are putting where they're from, maybe where you work. There's some type of community networking that can go on, like if you're at a school, if you're at a church, if you're at whatever organization. We're in now, this is that activism phase where we're organizing, strategize, organize, and implement. And so some of us are working in spaces where we don't know if I'm in law, if I'm in medicine. It's building momentum, because as they're organizing on the other side, we're going to organize on the side of justice and truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so we're just gonna jump in like we always do. I did want to start with a poll. Now I'm gonna tell you, this is the first time I've ever used a poll on Zoom. Kamal can attest to that. I'm gonna try this. I think I'm doing it the right way. So when it pops up, it's a real. I started real simple. I got a one question Likert scale 1 through 10 for this poll. So I'm gonna try to launch it, see what happens. If it pops up for you, can you just go ahead and click it? Just asking you for a number from 1 to 10. You can read it. It's all right there, and just go ahead and answer it. On a scale of 1 to 10, your understanding of what DEI is all about is what would be what? And it's important for me to ask this question too, because I know like we never know exactly who's joining us. Like, we send this out publicly, definitely people from our community, but I also know people that are taking a look at what we're doing. And I know that there are people on here that know way more about what DEI is than me, right? And so I know that there are some experts. I know I see some of you guys on here, but that have been doing this work, I'm not a DEI expert. I haven't gone through or been trained in anything DEI. I'm just a father trying to have a conversation, right? So I definitely want to, whatever's in that poll. I got about 10 more seconds left on the poll, then we're going to close it. I know we got more than 30 people, but if you didn't want to answer, you can put anything, but I got 8 more seconds left on the poll. If you didn't see the poll, okay, I'm going to go with the end of the poll. All right. Okay. I don't even know how to look at the details yet, but I just wanted to get it out there. Oh, there it is right there. Look at details. All right. Here's what I want to do though. What I want to ask, oh man, we got some folks in here. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I don't know how to share it. I'm new on that part. Here's what I want you to do now for me. What I want you to do is you saw the flyer DEI under attack. Matter of fact, let me go to the screen real quick. And I want you just to think about what is that? What does it even mean? Like when you saw this flyer, you got introduced to this conversation. When you hear about DEI under attack, what I want you to do is just in the chat, give me an example. Like I'm just what something you've heard, something you've seen, something. It doesn't have to be a long drawn out one. Just give me an example of something that you connect with the phrase DEI under attack. So go ahead and just start putting that in the chat, and let's see what we get with that. Like I'll start with one. So I just put the DEI mayor in Baltimore, right? This idea, right? So we actually, yes, exactly. Thank you guys. So dismantling of the actual offices, yep. Legal, negative politicians. Okay. All right. So we're getting okay. Let me do this. Let me open up let me start with that. I'm gonna come back to that. But this is okay. Make sure you guys are checking in the chat. What I also like to do is encourage people when you're reading the chat, if there's something that looks good to you or something you want to give a heart to or like at any point, do that because that helps to elevate it for me as I'm looking through the stuff when I see folks that people are chiming on stuff. So what I want you to do is just look through this stuff because again, some stuff you may be familiar with, some stuff is national, some stuff is local, some of this stuff on here is personal, right? So just take a look through some of that stuff to kind of get us started with this conversation because we're gonna take this a little bit differently than we're gonna move through this a little bit differently than probably some of the other ways I've done these calls. So here we go. I'm gonna show you a video, and then I just want you to think about those examples of DEI under attack, and then I want you to relate it to what you see in this video, and then I want you to put that in the chat, like whatever your thoughts are in the video. So I'm gonna show you a quick video. Think about how that video relates to this question about DEI under attack, and then put your thoughts in there, right? We're gonna have to make a connection. It's not gonna be direct about DEI in this conversation.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this.
All right, I won't hear it.
You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now. You're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
So I won't say anything. Put in your chat whatever connection you're making, whatever you're thinking about, having heard that, thinking about this conversation about DEI under attack. Again, you don't have to write a whole paragraph, just thoughts, phrases, whatever you could think of. Let's go ahead and drop in the chat. Erga, I appreciate saying you're confused. That's why we're here to talk about. I appreciate it. That's awesome. Strategic subterfuge. Okay, Susan. Take a look at the stuff in the chat as it's popping up. If you want to give it some likes, if you want to give it some thumbs up, okay, whatever you want to do as you see. So after you write something, just make sure you give somebody else a boost. It's always a good feeling. All right, as it's filling up, I want to go with my good friend Jackie Joseph. Her comment says, shocking how comfortable he is using that language. Um, I guess my first thought, and Jackie, I don't know if you're able to share, but is it really shock? Like, I guess whenever I see that in the chat or these conversations, the word shocking kind of shocks me that we're still shocked, right? And especially that was in the 1980s, so we haven't even gone through like DEI programming yet, right? So I'm just curious, Jackie, when because I know you speak, you're true with your words. So I just want to make sure, is it shocking to you, or is that truly shocking still to you?
It's not shocking to me now. It was 1988, and I was, that was a while ago. So I really wasn't aware of just how strategic they were in those days, but obviously I was a lot younger then. And so I was naive.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to really believe, I guess I was just naive to the evil is my point. So it wasn't shocking today. I get it today.
Yeah, got you.
That it was in 1988.
Yeah.
When so many people had so much respect for that era of politics. And it was just it's unnerving.
Absolutely. It's 81 actually, but you're right. The beginning of that era, the Reagan era, those 8 years of Ronald Reagan, and Lee Atwater was like his right-hand man, chief strategist. Like that was the main dude. I'm going to help you plan the strategy, how we're going to run our campaign and run. And those are the ideas that he was not just in his head, but he was comfortable enough saying out loud. Right. The shocking part to me, Jackie, if anything, is that nobody in the room gasped at all. There's a room full of reporters. This is room. He told them, like, don't record this. Don't quote me on. He said, don't quote me on this one. I'm gonna give y'all some background. And no one in the room was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. What are you talking about? You can't. No one. That's the most shocking part to me, if anything, which also is not shocking, but yeah, that's deep. Go ahead, Sharon from Philadelphia.
Oh, I'm just wondering, I didn't see how many people were, you mean the people in the room with Lee Atwater at the time that the recording was made?
Yes.
Do we know how many people were in that room or who else was in that room?
I don't know. I think when you read the article that talks about it, it talks about the setting of the room, but he wasn't just talking to one person. It was a crowd, people asking him. I think there were reporters. I believe so. Right. So
let me jump in really quick.
Yeah.
I think one thing that's important whenever we have incidents like this, and it's important whether someone watching a video saying it's the first 20 seconds of the video, or how many people in the room. It's really, if it's one person in the room, like it's just how problematic that is. Like we have to, as Americans, have to really zoom in on that. But I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The fact that there was not a single gasp or a single interruption of this, was the interesting part. Go ahead, Anita. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for me, when I hear we're looking at the context and hear that word that we're now using more abstract language, all that translates to me is just coded language. The meaning of the actions, if you will, on whether you call it busing or whatever you call it, the meaning is still basically the same. It's still kind of is an offshoot, if you will, of Jim Crow as an example. So you can use these abstract terms and all of that, but the bottom line is it's just more of the same coded language that we've been hearing for centuries.
Yeah. Other thoughts? Anyone else want? I saw another hand. Yep. Is that Todd? Go ahead, Todd.
Well, I think it just harkens back to the Southern strategy that Nixon used in the 60s, I'm in Wallace. I think Atwater was a good old boy or whatever. And it's my understanding, my parents were from Georgia, and they said that, like, even at that time, people still talk like that. I mean, that was not uncommon that was how they talked. Like, they didn't care what they said about people of color. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah, because again, I take us back to 1981. It makes sense, but that was pre-sensitivity trainings. It was this is what I learned growing up. I could say it. Nobody's going to stop me. We're going to talk about it. And you just have to conform to that, right? Or be around it. All right. Any other thoughts about the connection? I see there's a lot of good stuff in the chat. I would, if someone wants to drop something in the chat, please feel free. I'm sorry, wants to comment on something that's in the chat, please come off and feel free.
Kyle, I was just gonna liken it to the abstract term woke. I've seen millions of people ask conservatives to explain what that is, and they can't because they'll sound racist if they do.
You know, it's interesting. You're right, because it becomes this label, and it's easier to attack a label than even an idea. Like if you're going to attack an idea, you actually have to dive into the idea and analyze the idea and think about what the consequences or that's harder. If you just have a single word or a single thing to attach it to, and this becomes this all-encompassing umbrella over all those ideas you don't really want to dive into, you just give it a label and attack the label. And whether it's being called woke, like we literally have laws against being awake. I just learned something on Twitter. On Twitter, I meant to pull this up, but I forgot to grab it. But did you guys know that there was a when part of what got Abraham Lincoln elected in his campaign, there was a group of white people called the Wide Awakes. If you Google the Wide Awake, somebody at some point Google it and put it on the palette board for us. I just saw this. I haven't even done the full research. It popped up on a thread. I was reading through it. It's amazing, the Wide Awakes and how they helped Abraham Lincoln. So they weren't just woke, they were wide awake. And that's how the country made a radical shift. So when they talk about not wanting people to be, when they demonize woke, there's a reason for that. You see, this is where I want, and Jackie kind of talked about this, that they were so strategic. You can't maintain something like this. It was such a powerful way, and without being strategic, it's always been strategic. The strategy that was launched in 1619 or 1500, whenever you want to talk about these strategies against certain people, these strategies have flown through us the whole time. They're never not strategizing. That's the problem, because we don't strategize on how to push back. We just get run over. Like good people just keep getting run over because there's no organizational strategy. And you're going against a very simple, a very plain push forward all the time. That's why it's literally under attack, because we're pushing. Go ahead, Sharon. You're on mute, Sharon.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to look at the comments that everybody has put in the chat, and there's so many, and it's just like hard to follow that at the same time that you're talking. So I'm wondering if either somebody can summarize kind of like a totality of the comments, or if we can have maybe 3 or 4 minutes to quietly read them.
Well, let's do that. I'll give everybody, how about 2 minutes for everyone to quietly read one and give it a like. Everyone has to give it a like, so we're getting our time on this. I agree with that. Let's do that. Ten more seconds to go through that. All right, and thank you for that, Sharon, because here's the beauty of this. We are 50 people, 60 people having a conversation about a topic that we're coming from all different backgrounds, all different ways. And that's what that's what the long talks are about. I just want y'all to understand, like bringing all these ideas together, being able to have some conversation around them so we can elevate the conversation and understand more. Like, so please make sure we, continue to dive into that and go with that. Here's what I want to do here, because here's what I want to tell you guys, because we could spend an hour talking about all this stuff in the chat, like DEI is this, and we should, matter of fact, let me back up. If there is a person, some of you all put 10 on your DEI expertise, because most people don't know, because most people just know DEI, the target that gets attacked, Most people have no idea what really diversity, equity, and inclusion departments or initiatives or those things really do. Because I found in conversations I've been having lately, they think it's affirmative action. People think it's all kinds of stuff. So if we have one of those TENs, those DEI experts that can take a 1 minute kind of background introduction, like when did DEI initiatives start? Because I know they're in corporations. If you could give us a maybe 1 or 2 minute overview, I'm putting somebody on the spot to just kind of bring this whole idea around what exactly, not the argument around DEI, but with the actual core of it. Like when we talked about CRT before, there's an actual thing called critical race theory, but there's a boogeyman called CRT, and they're two different things. So I want to get to the core of what actually is diversity, equity, inclusion. So if there's somebody on the call that wants to take the floor that's way more knowledgeable about it than me, I give you a 1 or 2 minute space to bring us up to speed on what this is all about. And then I'm gonna go in a different direction with it. Anybody?
I'll just kick it off. I won't take the full 1 or 2 minutes, but I know that I started hearing about it after the situation with George Floyd. That's all I got. Anybody want to pass it along?
And that's exactly why I need an expert to pass it along. Because when you're talking about a person that's like, I didn't even know this stuff existed until somebody told me, and depending on what narrative you got, you're often running in a different space. So please, one of you TENs, I saw Wanda Peace on here. I'm not really calling y'all out, but I need somebody to take a 2 minute overview.
Well, I'll just say really quickly, I approach it from my public health background. I've been doing health disparity and health equity work for many years, and that led also when I came to higher ed into education equity. So from that perspective, those niches, I was doing a whole lot of diversity, equity, inclusion work. 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 as we progress. First, we just looked at the differences, but now we're looking at trying to educate people on the difference between equity and equality and making sure that we're inclusive of all folks to the point where we're looking at neurodivergency and diversity as well. So
it's an
that's one
intentional
piece.
perspective. It's an intentional perspective shift. We're intentionally looking at this stuff and diving into this stuff that may have been ignored historically. Yep. Go ahead, Allison. You want to add something?
Yeah, sure. So from a higher education perspective, which is what the lens I'm looking at this through, I think that a lot of this work was being done, for decades, but it became built into offices. And I'm going to say in around between 2005, 2010, and it often was attached to recruitment, not only of students, but recruitment of faculty and other employees, and making what had, across the country in predominantly white institutions, making them more inclusive. And so, this kind of structure was built with offices and then administrators who advanced diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging on a number of fronts. And it's complicated and really difficult work, and you have to have buy-in, and you're going against, the traditions and the trend, and you have to educate people. And it's just, that sort of how it has evolved over the last decade and a half or so.
I'd like to jump in.
Hold on 1 second, Deborah. Hold on.
No, I'm done. That's good. I think I've added what I can add.
Okay, and before Deborah jumps in, we do have some hands up, so I want to get Betsy real quick. Let's take 30 seconds, guys, because I do want to make sure get everybody's voice. So Betsy, you got 30 seconds.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right.
I'm driving. I just tried to jump in. I just pulled over so I can speak real fast, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll give.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead,
Betsy.
Deborah.
Can you hear me, Kyle?
Hold on a second, Betsy, because Deborah said she was in the car driving. Go ahead, Deborah. Go ahead and add your piece.
Apologies. I can't be on the call officially. I am a professor at 2 major institutions. I do race and racism training and strategy work. DEI is an offshoot of affirmative action, which was started under President Kennedy in the early 60s. It has evolved to, many people would argue, as performative offices and positions, curricula, and programming after the tragic death of George Floyd. So what corporations are doing, and education from PK all the way to graduate school, is to provide offices to help those people who are having the worst outcomes in every institution, whether it's banking and finance, transportation, education, healthcare, all of that. And so these offices are designed not to just to help Black people, but to help everybody, people of color, military, gays, women, everything. But sadly, this country is lifting up or allowing the white supremacy attitudes and tactics to overrun offices. Now, on the flip side of this, the research is very clear that DEI does not work. It doesn't work, but still it is needed and it's necessary and it's a first step. It's a first step because if you consider just higher ed, there's only no more than 8% of Blacks, and I mean, you can argue people of color, are on these campuses. So 92% and higher are all white campuses with white culture, and still DEI and people of color are a threat. So I wish I could say more. I wish I had more time. I'm driving, but thanks for having this conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm actually glad my intuition told me to switch to you and give you the floor because that's all I wanted to come out. And so I asked some other folks to put their hand, because what I wanted you to understand, and which if you listen to Deborah, that this has been around for a long time. It's been now become organized. And when you get organized with change, you get to be targeted. And so as you think about this, the evolution of the 1960s and affirmative action, everything that came up, and as it began to become more buy-in and more organized, people are getting positions and offices. Now it puts a target on it. So when people want to attack it, they attack those institutions because it was becoming institutionalized pushback on whatever level. I love it, Deborah added that it hasn't been effective because yes, you need buy-in, like Allison said. And so how effective it's been has been put against the pushback, but here we are. Now, all that is what it is. We're not going to bog ourselves down in that stuff. And hold on a second, Susan, because I'm getting ready to switch the gears on what this is all about. Because we're not going to argue, or we don't need to be, I don't need you to be any more educated about DEI to play your role in the attack on DEI. Okay? Because when I say this is an attack, what I need you to understand is that anytime there's been progress, there's always been backlash. There's always been backlash. So when you had this whole Black Lives Matter movement of people awakening and finding a new voice and new ideas, there's pushback. This is the pushback. And when I tell you that it's organized, I need you to understand that there are, when we say we're in a war against ignorance, I know we're talking about metaphorically, but I'm talking about a real battle. I'm not talking about like a feeling of I'm talking about a real battle. So I'm going to show you something to show you my point, because I need, most of the folks that have been down with us before, you know this name already. If you talked to us before, you already understand who Christopher Rufo is. If you don't know who Christopher Rufo is, you don't understand the attack on DEI. I can't make that more plain to you. He tells it straight on his Twitter feed exactly what he plans on doing, and he just goes and executes. Because he's basically buying into people's general ignorance and then giving them a narrative to run where they don't have to say nigger, nigger, nigger. So I'm gonna show you. This is him. You know, he's an instant New York Times bestseller. I've never written a book before. Nobody knows who I am before, but I find the formula, I push the button, and millions of people buy my book. This is what he said in 2020. In 2019, in the beginning of 2020, he told everybody what he was getting ready to do. He told them exactly why. That this critical, he has an article in the Washington Post where he literally explains that it was something he just kind of made up to get to, he knew that what critical race theory was. He started the CRT boogeyman to get people to focus on something politically and socially to push back. And he did it. And he says right here, tonight we celebrate, tomorrow back to war. After he put that in, if you notice, he put the sword in his icon. When you look up Christopher Rufo's names, you're going to see a lot of pictures of him standing next to Ron DeSantis. He's on the board of education for all the decisions that are being made in Florida. This is, I don't want y'all to think this is just it's always a strategy. But he went on to here, tomorrow we're back and fight. We must stop till DEI is abolished. He's literally running a counter narrative. That's what he's doing. His current focus is NPR. So he went from CRT to DEI. He hit trans athletes in the middle, by the way, too. And then he went to this, and now he's focused on NPR. It's crazy right now what's going on with him on Twitter right now, today, on NPR. He's trying to get this woman fired, all kinds of stuff. What I need you, and maybe he has some stuff about acronyms. That means maybe he got like a crazy fetish about an acronym, right? What I want you to understand, because what we're getting ready to do is just we're gonna go to war. We're gonna join into the attack. Our front line is here, right? So what I want you to understand is that I use my Twitter as my platform. And what I'm just doing is showcase it here. I said another made up distraction from the white supremacist culture warrior, the leading divisive voice in America today. He's gaslighting people to be emotional. That's what he's doing. So what I'm saying is wherever your space is, if you're engaged in the war against ignorance, it's time for all of us to use our voice on our platform to not argue about what this is, to just showcase it, interrogate it, and show it. All right? I want you to understand one thing, because I said in the beginning, I'm not a DEI expert. So if you want to know my acronym, I'm ARA, Anti-Racism Activation. So when he wants to come for that that means us, when he's coming for us. I'm just letting you know. Because we're trying to do something. A lot of times in DEI, what I find the reason why it might not work as much, because it's a lot of philosophizing. It's a lot of intellectualizing. It's a lot of making sure we understand these words. But just understanding the evil around you doesn't mean it changes. It just means you feel a little bit more comfortable or maybe pushing through it. It's time to do something. So we got to activate. And that's what we're getting ready to spend the next half an hour with, because y'all know what we do. What is our shield and our armor in the world of war against ignorance? Somebody tell me what, as a community member of the Long Talk, what is our shield and our armor in the war against ignorance? Somebody tell me.
Education and awareness.
It's even easier than that. How do we educate and make people aware? What do we do as members of the community?
Ask questions.
We ask questions. See, the CPR protocol is our shield and our armor. It's our battle gear. It's what we do. I'm not going to try to convince everything that was said, that Deborah said. I'm not running that down on people. I'm just going to challenge their ignorance. Because if I'm telling you that it's made up, why would you try to find out what they're talking about and what they made up? We're just going to challenge their ignorance with our CPR protocol. So guess what today actually really is? Today is also CPR protocol practice for everybody on the call. Because we're getting ready to show the protocol again, and we're going to go into breakout rooms, and we're going to talk about the stuff that people are saying around DEI. We're going to arm ourselves up to push back against it with questions that drive the conversation in different places. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. I want you in the chat to put all the different things. Oh, I got one more thing. And while I'm talking, if you want to, but I'm going to show you something, but we're going to start pushing back on statements. So things you're hearing that are anti-DEI statements, whether people are saying them to you, they're in the news, whatever that statement is that somebody's saying, instead of trying to argue against it, we're going to interrogate it with the protocol. So hold on one second. And then, but if one comes to mind, sorry, then you can just put it in the chat. But let me just help you understand why I'm so passionate about this and why it's so serious. Y'all know I love quotes. This is it. It's the biggest battle we have to fight. Because let me tell you why this is the biggest battle. Because some people might not. First of all, it touches everything. See, ignorance is what leads all these arguments and discussions and these policies that are hurtful to people, right? Ignorance and some hate behind it if you want. But just ignorance alone will do the job. But we have to fight the battle against ignorance, because here's the thing. Take a look at this quote. See, I'm not trying to be an alarmist, but I've been living here and understand the history of this country for a long time. And we have a long history in this country of ignorance leading to fear, and fear leading to hate, and hate leading to violence. And when you maybe never been on the receiving end of that, when you've never been the targeted, demographic for that, it doesn't feel the same way. But I'm living in America, in Washington, D.C. right now, and as we lead into 2024, and I'm telling you, that ignorance is abound. And with ignorance, all this stuff is what's going to follow. So when we talk about what we're going to do, we have to decide that we're going to make a declaration against this stuff. And it first starts with our knowledge. So yes, we've gotten the knowledge, all you need to know about DEI, that it's something for good, it's something for fairness, all that stuff. If you're a fan of that, it's something we should be down with. We also learned that it has to get better. So if there are ways to improve it, let's make sure we improve it. But also you got to realize that the knowledge of having the skill to push back, that's what we're going to make sure we do, because as a Long Talk community members, every single one of us has that knowledge and that skill. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do a quick overview on the CPR protocol. We're going to jump into some breakout rooms, and we're going to just come back and debrief, and then we're going to be done, because we're going to be ready to go do what we need to do. Now, I'm going to use this. We have a protocol practice guide. I'll put the link on the Padlet board that anybody can use when you leave here. But just to remember, our mentality is most important. You got to go from furious to curious. We're going to actually interrogate ignorance, like a police officer would. Shine the light on them and just get curious. Tell me what that means, because they don't know what it means either. We're just exposing the ignorance. All right. I really want you to think of it more like a police detective than somebody, a history teacher making an argument. Make them go by asking them questions. Listen more than you talk. As much as Deborah shared, don't try to share any of that. Use that knowledge to make a question where they can't share anything. I'm going to listen more than I talk. But also remember, when it comes to these conversations, people have the right to remain ignorant. But what I'm trying to make people understand is you can't just come say these things at me and not get challenged on your ignorance. That's the whole point of the protocol. As a quick review, we're going to ask 3 types of questions. They can go in any type of order, but it's good if you run them down the line. The first question is a clarifying question. Whatever statement they make, you don't have to know. I want you to act like you have never heard such a crazy thing in your life. Like I love what Erga said, is that I don't know what y'all talking about. That's exactly the philosophy. Tell me more. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Let them dig themselves in a hole thinking they know what they're talking about. Because sometimes they'll be like, well, I think that was affirmative action. They don't know what they're talking about. Just let them talk. But be specific about what it is that they said. When you ask that question and whatever they own, I need you to probe a little deeper. How do you think, if people are trying to just make it more diverse, how do you think that makes people feel who aren't in the original group? Like, how do you think it makes people feel that you would attack something that's trying to bring more people in? If people just want fairness and equity and equality, how did you make people feel when you attack that? And just let them answer for real. They might say, I don't care about the Black people. Thank you for saying it out loud. Now you don't have to say, you can just say nigger now. It's fine. Like, I just want you to say it out loud. And then the last part is that you can recognize that maybe they are missing the information. Maybe they do need to know who Christopher Rufo is to get a little bit more. So I'm just going to say, what would happen if you just supported people or just learned more about this or just didn't say anything about it at all till after you saw this link or you read this article? Then maybe let's have this conversation again. See, I'm just moving people through understanding that you can't say this stuff at me to get me into an argument or get me to try to defend something that I don't even know about. I'm just going to ask you to defend what you think you know about. And I'm going to ask you how it makes people feel, and do you have to do it? Is it true? Is it nice? Is it necessary? Because if it's not any of those 3 things, I need you to stop saying that stuff in front of me. All right? And again, you can use a link to educate and all that stuff, but that's not your job. We don't have time to re-educate people. They're moving through without any education. So we're just going to keep asking questions. We're going to keep diving into questions, and we're going to practice. All right? So here's what I want you guys to do. In the chat, I just want you to give us a test bank of questions or comments. Just put something that you want to learn how to challenge, something somebody said to you, an argument about DEI or whatever. Put it in the chat and go ahead and put it down there, and we're going to practice. I know we had a couple of folks drop off, but it's always interesting when we start to practice and we get more drop-offs. It's the second time I've done this, and both times it worked like that. I know some folks had to go, but it's just kind of interesting to me. All right, let's go ahead and fill up the chat. Once you put yours in there, yep, didn't earn it. Yep, just put the comment that's in there, whatever, just put it there. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to, yep, the idea we should be colorblind. Because we're going to practice for 10 minutes in these breakout rooms. I'm going to put you in teams of 3. I'm going to do teams of 4. We'll just have you, somebody will practice, somebody will push back. We'll do an observer. Everybody won't get to practice, but you also won't have the pressure of everybody having to practice. Okay. And you know what, the part about, you know, the part that I think when I always ask questions about driving the perspective, DEI has become just about Black people. Like, it really is. It's like women don't realize that white women have like prospered more from DEI initiatives than anybody else, but nobody talks about. So a lot of times when I change the question up, I might say, well, they say, well, you know, DEI is bringing in unqualified people. I say, well, why don't you think these white women are qualified? It messes people up. They never thought about it like that. But just show you how it works. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to actually copy these and drop them in your in your space in a second when I put you in the breakout rooms. But before you do that, if you kind of look and grab one that you want to see practice, and then I'm going to put you in a room with some strangers, maybe some people that you know, and then all I want you to do is just start to practice. You can get 2 practices in 10 minutes, and we're going to come back and do a quick 10-minute debrief, and then we're going to be done. All right. So I'm going to put you in your breakout rooms. Just grab that, jump in, open it up now, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes. Everybody's about to zap back. Zap. All right. So hopefully you had a chance. Maybe some of y'all saw some old friends. Maybe you met some new ones, but hopefully that 10 minutes was worth it for you. What I want you to do is in the chat, I just want you to put down, first we're going to put down 10, just whatever you can think of that was like a gem, something that you learned, right? Just something that you learned. I learned how to calm down. I learned I needed to practice more. Something that you learned is a good, something you can share with the group. Just some learning. It's going to be the best way for us all to get a piece of this. I want you to read through the chat as people are writing. So anything you learn, give us a nugget that's good for the group.
Humor is clutch.
Got you. You're right. Humor is clutch. All right, drop that in the chat for me. All right, let's see. Love Jackie said, I'm not alone. The more we connect about these conversations, sometimes it feels isolated. You don't want to go to war by yourself. You don't want to go, we need to make sure we mount up. So that's why we'll, keep connecting here, but connect out there as well, for sure. All right. Sharon said, yeah, can work for many situations. I believe it can work with anything. Like, it's crazy how these, kids use it when you tell them you're not going to take them to the amusement park. They're going to see why. How does it make me feel when you say, like, it works for everything, right? So we just understand how to use it. All right, let's see what else. Take a look through the chat. Give people some thumbs up, some acknowledgments. I'll also say that I don't have to stop. I'm going to go to 2:15. If anybody wants to stick around, you're more than welcome. I understand if you have to go at 2, but I'm going to push on to 2:15 before my next call at 2:30. So feel free. Pause, collect yourself. Listen, there's some really good stuff in here. Use personal stories, questions, clarifying, probing. This is exactly up. The questions you ask are more important than the answers they give. Lauren with the bar. That is, listen, their ignorance is your power. Hear what I said. Their ignorance is your power. So just let them keep spilling their ignorance, and then you ask the powerful question that disrupts it all. Like, the more people talk about the illogical ideas, it shows you where the problem in their logic is. And you just keep asking questions right there. What about that? What about that? What about that? So that's 100%. Your questions just lead to the information you get back. Then you get that back, you listen. Here's another one. All the podcasts you listen to, if you're a DEI expert, they don't care. They don't want to hear any of that. Use your expertise to ask questions that'll just stump them, make them sound crazy by using analogies and personal stories. Ask questions that their heads are like blowing up. All right, let's see. All right, good. These are bars in here. Now I want to flip it. I want to know what questions you have. Like, if it didn't, this is all the hurrah, I learned this is good. What is a question that you might have is like, this didn't work for me, or how would I use it with this? So now start putting some questions in the chat that I'm gonna try to answer. And that's probably what's gonna take us, past 2 o'clock. So that's why I wanted to let, and if you have to go, before 2 o'clock, but you're gonna put in a question in, also send it to me privately. So I'll know that you got to jump off so I can hit it. All right. Yep, the feeling statements. That's the stumper usually. How does it make people feel? Like, you can own all the facts you want. That's fine. But how do you think it makes people feel when you say that comment? And what would happen if you just supported trans people instead of opposed them every single time? What would Jesus do? I've been throwing that one out a lot. What would Jesus do? There's a good stumper question right there. Somebody makes a comment. What parts of the Bible support that view about immigration that you have? I'm just curious. Those are stumper questions, exposure questions. All right. This is the wrong way. Resistance. Help me with that, Rick. I'm not sure what you're asking. I don't know if that was rhetorical.
Just the sense of, right. So much of what we do is reactive and defensive, and why? Like, why is what we're doing going against a false norm? When can we start switching the dynamic and saying, like, we're not, this isn't rebellion, where this is actually taking things in the right direction. And how do we, it's like the idea of them taking DEI or taking CI, how do we start taking some of that back so that what we talk about becomes the norm, and what they talk about is seen by more as being the opposite, the bad side?
Yeah. It's exactly right how whenever somebody says to me that as an anti-racist, that makes me a racist, I just kind of look at this circular brain motion that they must be going through to kind of make that make sense. But you're right, it's become so embedded and so natural that we become the norm. We become the people going against the grain on the moving walkway of racism in America. You're right. But part of that isn't, I believe that instead of trying to claim new ground by forcing through, I'm going to make them lose ground by having them just to chop off the ignorant stuff they just can't say anymore around me. So I'm taking back space, not by pushing my philosophy or the right way. I'm just attacking the wrong way and exposing it so less people want to be around it. So that's kind of my approach to this, right? But that's a good, thank you for explaining that one. How to overcome our fears. Susan, talk about that, Susan. Tell me about that.
Well, in our group, it brought up that there are some fairly reactionary folks out there. And then if you're in a group and some really stupid statements come out, to interrupt and ask a question for clarification at that point could potentially put you in danger. And so how do we
Susan, hold on. What is the worst thing that could happen to you personally? I want to know, like, what's your threat that you feel like somebody would do to you? Because I know your son would kill somebody. I know your son would not play that. So I just want to know seriously, Susan, like for real, what are you afraid of that somebody might do to you?
Well, I think somebody could identify you, number one, follow you home, attack you physically, in addition to attacking you verbally. I'm okay with that, but
so
the physical altercation.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean to interrupt you, Susan. I'm so sorry. I want y'all to hear what Susan just said. Susan lives in Sacramento, California. I'm not going to put Susan's age on the spot, but Susan's a motherly figure to me. And
I
you
will be
heard her
80
say,
in August.
love for 80 in August. And you just heard her say that by engaging in a conversation to interrupt ignorance in her space, she feels threatened physically that something might happen to her. This is the country we live in right now. I need y'all to understand that. And I'm saying to you, it's ramping up and ramping up. And if we just keep allowing it to become normalized, we're teaching another generation of people that you can actually do this at a higher level and be successful. Literally, the people who are watching this movement that is going on, whether it be MAGA, all this stuff, they're watching success go even deeper into the dungeons of humanity. Like, we don't have to be nice to each other. Mean tweets is like a thing. It's either liberalism or mean tweets. Like, that's what we're living through right now. So again, I just want to stress to y'all, we have to do stuff in terms of pushing back.
And Kyle, it's Betsy. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yep.
I'm in the car. So, no, my question about that is, I hear you, and I think it's true. The challenge is if the person does not engage, and I know we're not out there to change their mind, but if they just shut you down, do you just walk away?
So that's different. If you said they don't engage, that means you shut them in. You shut them down. So if they don't engage and you're questioning, then you're shutting them down because like, you don't have to. Maybe I'm misunderstanding you, but if I ask somebody a question, if somebody's telling a racist joke and I interrupt it right in the middle and say, "Hey, wait, can you explain that to me? What exactly you mean?" And they just decide not to engage in my conversation with them,
No, they don't want. If they just don't want to hear what you have to say.
Why are you talking so much? They shouldn't be there to hear what you have to say. You should be listening to what they have to say and then making them say some more stuff out loud. See, the problem,
and if they don't, and then if you ask the question and they don't respond, or they just keep coming back with the same thing, I guess that's my concern. Is just so many of these people are exactly the way you just described. They're effectively brainwashed, and I realize I'm being very judgmental.
So no, you're not being judgmental. You have data to prove it because you asked them critical thinking questions. Betsy, stop trying to save everybody. Your job is to let everybody know how brainwashed and crazy they sound by asking them questions that continue to expose it. Most people will answer questions. They'll also argue facts. So as soon as you give one fact, you've changed the whole dynamic. They shouldn't be listening to you at all. I want to make sure you heard this, because a lot of times what really smart people do is we ask loaded questions. I'm going to ask the question because Kyle said I got to ask the question, but here's my whole doctrine, and then I'm going to ask no, don't do that. Ask one question with about 10 words in it, and then just listen. And then ask a follow-up question.
I hear you, but I think that sometimes people get so in their own space.
Remember the hard pass? Betsy, remember the hard pass? We're not trying.
Yeah.
If send them a link and keep it moving. Stop wasting time. There's a whole bunch of people that are really nice about saying ignorant stuff that are just in line at the grocery store. Stop trying to change Bob. He's not going to change.
Good point.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead, Anila. Anila, am I saying it right? Anila?
Anila.
Anila, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the handful of years that I've been doing this work, going on year 21, so I'm really, feeling proud of this milestone. I personally believe in the power of education, and I remember the grace and compassion that people showed me as I was learning to unlearn and relearn and use right language. I think that sometimes I need to remind myself that I need to extend that same grace and compassion to people who are also, and know that I'm not the only power. And that's a great a source of relief for me in knowing that I have what I have, the time that I have, and then I can just be like, all right, hopefully somebody else, and then maybe that, those wires will click. I know, for me coming from overseas and understanding different topics that relate to this, to like how these sort of inequities and disparities exist in these United States, it was a journey for me to go through that process of unlearning, but it took multiple conversations before I was able to be like, I get it. Thank you. And so I really appreciated people who still are that sounding board for me to be like, okay, I had a foot in mouth moment. And I'm thankful that my students or my colleagues corrected me versus taking me out to like wash me in public. And so then for me, it's incumbent on me as an educator to then showcase that same patience and compassion and grace if I commit to walk with them on that journey, but I don't have to.
Absolutely.
Right? It's not my job to, and just paying attention to how that's done.
I love that. And you got a lot of claps on that one for you did, because you hit a lot of different parts, and you're right. And I want to make sure that, Bessie, when I want us to approach this totally different. I don't want us all that old stuff. Like and Black people, we say, stop bringing up old shit. Like, leave all that stuff behind them. Don't assume that they're going to do all this stuff and give away. If we're going to engage in anyone, I'm going to give you a clean slate every time, because I'm going to hope that maybe the link I sent you watched, and maybe that moved you along. So we got a new clean slate. Now, because it's breadcrumbing people, right? But some people, you only need one breadcrumbs. They just didn't know. They're like, yo, I didn't know that. Okay, now I didn't know. If you're talking about DEI with a person that doesn't know who Christopher Rufo is, stop talking. Like, you could just ask, hey, do you know about this guy, Christopher Rufo? No, I don't know about him. Send him the link. Let them do let them learn. Send them the link to the article. And then what do you think about that? They have to now decide to come back and say, either I support that and I support this whole, but now I know you don't need to be educated. I'm going to educate you, but you don't need it. Let's go. Like, have the grace to say, let me see if I can find something for you. And also to Bessie, to Bessie's point, you can't argue, you can't give the person the facts anymore. Stop. They're not going to listen to you. Give them a link and then ask them a link for what they think their facts are. And then if they don't talk about the link anymore, you probably won't even bring this up. Next time they see you, say, did you watch the link yet? Or did you read the article yet? All right, well, stop talking about this. Until you read the article, we can't stop bringing this up around me. I've talked to 22,000 people now, y'all, in almost 4 years. 22,000 people have had this conversation with me. And I haven't talked to a single one before they watched that Jeffrey Robinson video, because I do not have the patience or the time. So if you're still talking to me about racism and you haven't sent them the Jeffrey Robinson link, you're just hoarding. Like, stop talking to people, give them a chance to be educated, and then talk about that. But stop trying to argue with them about your points, because they don't want to hear them. But thank you for all right, good stuff. Let me stop talking about. I got about 10 minutes left. What else is in the chat? Let me see what other questions we have. And again, if you have to jump off, I appreciate it. I love that Deborah put in here the politics of Jesus. Good stuff. Good resources. We will put all that stuff together. Let me see if there are any questions that I missed. I'm going back. Okay. So let me get back to Susan's piece about the fear. And I agree with Susan. I never want you to feel afraid. And here's the thing about asking questions. You can always choose when to engage and when not to. If you think somebody's a little off and it's not going to go well, because once they've identified they're crazy, I just want to make sure enough people saw it. So I can now move on and people can do it. But what I'll say to you is that what I want you to think about outside of physical violence, if you're afraid of being called woke, if you're afraid about people taking you out of a group chat or not inviting you to Christmas, or maybe at your job, this is just going against the grain. And if you're afraid of risking your job or your position at the job because you have a different idea, I just want you to ask yourself what people have gone through to get us here. That's what I always go back to. If I just got to ask questions every day and I don't have to take those lashes on my back like they did a couple 100 years ago, if I don't have to have my children separated from me to fight this battle like they did through Jim Crow, if I don't have to watch everything I built in my life get burnt to the ground, if I don't have to go through not getting the job and not using the water fountain, if I don't have to go through getting stopped and frisked, if I can just ask people questions, well, shit, sign me up all day and let's go. So I just want to say, overcome your fear. Whatever it takes for you to overcome your fear, because yes, this is courageous work. Christopher Rufo is a warrior. He is an absolute warrior, and he's inspiring a nation of warriors off misinformation. And if we can't inspire a nation of warriors to go against misinformation and knowledge people up with skills and critical thinking, then we're going to lose. And it's not going to be Christopher Rufo's fault at all. It's going to be our fault. Like it's always been our fault, the good people who allow this country to continue and maintain. So yes, this is the latest culture war. It doesn't matter if it's DEI or CRT or trans. If anything doesn't look like the status quo of white supremacy, the idea is stop talking about it, stop trying to help it, stop trying to fix it, stop trying to support it. That's their game plan, their strategy since day one. And all I'm saying is, it's just time for us to strategize, to act, to work, to gather whatever strength you have to pull up and just get in the game. Asking questions, interrupting, even if it just means the questions I ask you just keep you in a holding pattern. You didn't go on with the rest of your story because you've been asking 5 questions for 5 minutes. And now when I'm done, I only want to hear the rest of your story and I'm going to finish the rest of my day. That's all we got to do. Let's just keep pushing and keep forcing ourselves forward. So I went on a little tangent there, but I got a little excited. Any other questions or comments or anything? I appreciate y'all for staying over a couple more minutes, but I'll open up the floor to anything. So Susan again, yep.
Yeah, can I share good news?
Please.
We have a new African-American president at Sac State, youngest president at a public university in the country. He's only 42 years old, Dr. Luke Wood. He was the DEI officer at San Diego State University, a VP down there, before becoming president at Sac State. And we are opening the first Black honors college outside of an HBCU in the country.
Wow.
They are accepting students now for fall semester.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Susan, when did we first meet?
Oh gosh, 3 or 4 years ago,
Almost,
years ago.
Yeah, definitely 3, almost 4 years ago. Susan's on one of the original Long Talk calls. And her son brought her into the conversation. He's an incredible warrior himself. And we are working with Sacramento State because of Susan. Like we've done work. We're coming out there. Kamal jumped off, but I don't know when our next date is, but we're out there working. We've gotten out of athletics. We're across the campus. What you're hearing Susan share is not just some little moment to say, look what we did at Sac State. We have this person up. No, they've been grinding and working and pushing to make sure that brother, when he walks in there, is not just walking in to change something. He's walking into a changed environment. See, a lot of y'all are waiting for, oh, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, he is a graduate from Sac State.
So he's gonna see the night and day.
He's coming home. He's a former foster youth. His story is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal.
This is the work, y'all. Y'all know when he went there, it wasn't the same vibe that it is right now. Yeah. And I want you to understand that's a life cycle, that abolitionist, I can't wait. That must be, I mean, that's just incredible. So this is the other part of the work. And I want to make sure I say this. Yes, the CPR protocol is the work, the individual things that we all can do. But there are people on here like Susan McGinty that are already responsible for hundreds of people going through a long talk. Just by using her circle, using her spaces, to say, hey, we should keep doing this. And it might take 20 emails. It might take a new person coming in. It might take that. But there are people that we've talked to that are responsible. Literally, their personal influence has expanded our conversation to thousands of people. We're getting ready to go to the NCAA hockey conference. You know, I don't know anybody. at the NCAA hockey conference. But we had one hockey coach that was in a position of power. The conference is like in a week or two. We met them about last month. Y'all know these conferences get planned out a year in advance. This man saw what we did, picked up the phone and said, we're going to put these people on our stage. Y'all figure it out. How long is it? You got 45, how much you need? I was like 90 minutes if you can. He was like 90 minutes. We're going to give them on the stage. It got back to 60, but okay, we're in the door. He just picked up the phone. And now another 800 schools are going to hear about a long talk. The last time we were at a conference like that, we went to the women's field hockey conference. 70 field hockey teams signed up for a long talk.
That's awesome.
Like but it's more than what it is that means 70 schools, 70 spaces, young women, predominantly white women, are having these conversations with depth, with sincerity, with empathy, and with action. See, I'm telling y'all, this stuff is working. If you have not introduced us to somebody, I don't know what you're waiting for. A simple email, you know what? I need to talk to my pastor. You need to talk to my teacher. Just put us in the flow. I promise you, if people really want to have this conversation, if they really want to enable their spaces to understand the history and understand things like the CPR protocol, you can't say no to us because I'll do it for free. Maybe I don't hear me. We have done this for free 100 times easily because that's what it was going to take to get the conversation done. Now we are building a company. We have a backbone we have to build. But it is no excuse. We've done it on the weekends and the evenings, on holidays, doesn't matter to us. I've done it with 10 people in the call or 100 people. So what I'm saying is that if you have not connected us to somebody, that's a level of activism I just want you to take. Just introduce us. You can make a form letter on an email and just keep plug 3 people in a month. I'm gonna make y'all know who this is. They might not do anything with it, but all we gotta do is keep it moving. All right. So it's not about me. It's about Susan. See, because I've been wanting that black man to get the job at Sacramento State for however long Sacramento State's been open. And I don't even know him or the school. Right. But Susan got it done. And if she was inspired by us or supported by us, that's great. But you as individuals can do amazing things. You're going to be in places I'll never be in ever. I don't have to be in there. Bring me and bring a long talk and bring this whole energy and this vibe to the front line wherever you go. All right.
Okay. Thanks for letting me share.
I appreciate it. Anybody else have any good news? That was incredible. Any other questions before we go? Well, I want to thank you guys. I have to do more of these. What I realize is that Kamal and I put our heads down and we have so much, it's some incredible stuff coming down the pipeline, but I had to take a deep breath and back up and we haven't put out our newsletter. We haven't had conversations. We got to turn around. Like we're running so fast forward that we got to stop and turn around. And I appreciate whether it's 30 people that show up or 50 people or whatever. We're going to do a lot more of these. I'm not going to even just do them once a month. It might be 2 days in advance. You get the notice. If you can hear it, come join us. And then we'll record everything and put it out. So you'll see us coming back more. Like we've been out in front, we've been leading. We still need your help to put us in new spaces, but I promise you, we're going to bring this back to having many more conversations and many more. We got to go into the war room, y'all. Like it's critical. It's crucial. It's 2024. We don't want backwards to win this time. We can't afford it, like for real. But if they do, we really better get on our jobs and man our posts if they do, because the possibility exists.